Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome all to this meeting of the Horn Lake Board of Aldermen. As always, good government depends on the citizens being involved, and we certainly appreciate you getting out on this warm Mississippi evening. At this time, I'd like to ask Alderman Bostic to please lead us in our invocation.
Let us pray. Our Father, we just thank you for the opportunity to serve the city of Horn Lake, Lord, as elected officials, and just help us in the decisions that we make. Lord, we'll uplift you most of all, and we just ask for peace right now among this nation and the surrounding countries, Father, and the chaos that's going on, Father, Lord. We just ask for the peace that only comes from you, Father, Lord, and just watch over each individual, each family, and just be with us as a community to come together and follow you. Thank you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Alderman. Would you please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States, led by Alderman Young.
And salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, sir.
All right, let's roll.
Roll call, Mr. Robinson, sir, please.
Alderman Klein.
Here.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Here.
Alderman Geis.
Here.
Alderman Bostic.
Here.
Alderman Johnson.
Here.
Alderman Dupree.
Here.
Alderman Young.
Here.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. All right, number one on the agenda is the vote on the municipal docket. Do we have a motion?
Mayor,
Alderman Geis.
make a motion to approve the municipal docket.
Do we have a second?
Second, sir.
Motion by Alderman Geis, second by Alderman Young. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Moving on down, number 2 is the consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, before a motion is made, and I meant to ask this before the meeting, item L, the disciplinary action there, I thought I saw something in the meeting packet where that employee had filed an appeal. Is that still true, such that we need to take that up?
He has, but he won't be back for another 2 weeks. He's on vacation for 3 weeks.
Understood, but he did file an appeal. In that case, Mr. Mayor, we need to remove item 11 from the consent agenda, and we'll take that up in executive session.
Item L, you mean?
L, yes, sir.
You said 11.
Oh, same thing.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a motion?
Mayor,
Alderman Johnson.
I'd also like to request that we have items H and I move to executive session as well.
Is that agreeable to everybody? But do we have a motion for the consent agenda? Except moving H and I to executive session?
I'd like to motion.
All right. Motion by Alderman Johnson. Is there a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
Second by Alderman Dupree. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. All right. The next item, number 3, is the claims docket. Do we have a motion to pay the bills?
Mayor,
Alderman Geis.
I make a motion to approve the claims docket. General fund, $337,625.02. The bond-funded CAT project expense, $0. The library fund, $3,075.20. The economic development fund, $2,177.56. The utility fund, $54,514.56, for a total docket of $397,392.34.
We have a motion by Alderman Geis.
Second.
We have a second by Alderman Bledsoe. Do we have any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. All right, moving down to special guests and presentations is number 4 on your agenda. Under letter A is a proclamation for a Purple Heart City. Here.
Mayor,
As you know, sir.
Does he have?
that's probably not in your packet. Apologize, that was not updated from last year's. So I will try to get that so you can read that at a later date.
All right, thank you, sir. Because this one, I can't read.
Yes.
All right, is that all right with everybody on the board? I think everybody's agreeable. It's a worthy thing. All right, moving on down. I have several agendas here. The American Legion, thank goodness we have some representatives from that most honorable organization. I think they want to request to have a turkey shoot. I hope you're not referring to your city government in this turkey shoot request. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Would you please give y'all's name and address to our clerk so it can be entered in the
Most
minutes?
certainly. Mike Frontebarger, 2520 Goodman Road.
George Watson, 2650 Valley Brook, Horn Lake.
All right, gentlemen. Yes, sir.
First off, we want to thank the mayor and the council here for allowing us to come before you tonight. What we have in mind with the American Legion is coming up on October the 23rd is to do an archery-style turkey shoot. Within this, we're looking to incorporate the Boy Scouts program to come to our property at 2520 Goodman Road, set up targets, having a safety structure in place with this, and having a turkey shoot on targets for the day. Where right now this is still in the planning stage, but we wanted to come before the council to make sure that there weren't any issues of having this within the city limits on property.
So it's strictly archery, sir?
Yes, sir, no firearms.
Yes, sir. You know, I read that in the state of Mississippi there were 40,000 students involved in the archery program, and last year they had one at Horn Lake. I guess they still have it.
I wasn't aware of that, but if those numbers are accurate, that's awesome.
And a lot of deer.
Anytime the kids are able to get into the sports programs or anything, participate-wise, that's a good day.
It is, and a lot of deer hunters too. They probably welcome the chance to
Yes, sir.
do a little serious shooting there. Does anyone have any questions? Alderman Bostic.
Yes, I was going to ask before, do they have to have any type of permit or anything in order to do that before we say okay?
I don't know what the property is. I don't know how it's zoned. There may be a conditional use in the ordinance for a special event. I don't know if that would qualify or not, but we're happy to inform them, work with them.
Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for doing that. I just want to make sure that we do it the right way. So.
Absolutely, and that's why we wanted to come before you tonight, to make
I
sure that
got
we had
you. So
everything
as soon as we get a nod from him that says yes, and I'm sure all of us will give a nod to say yes. So.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Campbell, do you know off the top of your head, or do we have to research it?
I do not, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Mr. Barber. We'll take a look at it and certainly follow up with everybody.
Could y'all come back for our first meeting in September? Would that throw y'all too far behind?
No, sir.
Is that agreeable to everyone on the board? Alderman Young.
The only thing I want to say, is they are a 501c3 organization, to take that in consideration when you're researching. If it's like other 501c3s, they will not need a permit in the state of Mississippi, as if the Lions Club didn't need a permit to use public land, the park, whatever. But yeah, the first meeting, we'll definitely have the answers for all that, but I'll have to recuse myself from that conversation because I am a member of the Legion. So.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, after I present the planning case in a moment, I'd be happy to meet with these gentlemen in the hallway, and we get as far as we can with it in just a few minutes.
Well, I sure would appreciate that, Mr. Bob, and I imagine these gentlemen would also. Alderman Bledsoe.
About your insurance, make sure you have your insurance, because everything we have at the park, we have to have X number of dollars for insurance.
Yes, sir.
They're talking about doing it on their property, Alderman Bledsoe.
Okay, well, I was just making sure.
Mayor, I have a question too.
Anybody else have any questions?
Mayor,
Alderman Johnson.
Yes, ma'am.
what safety protocols have you guys put in place, or are you thinking about as far as safety, and who would be able to attend?
It will be open to the public, so anyone in general public will be able to attend. It's not just for any specialized group. And as far as for the safety equipment for it, we're looking to bring in safety instructors, safety qualified instructors for the archery, and build up backstop areas for that.
Okay, is there a certain amount of space that is normally required, or?
That's one of the things that we're working with the safety instructors to determine how many shooters that we could have in the area that. For the size area that we have.
Okay, and no experience will be necessary?
Ma'am?
No experience will be necessary?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No, ma'am. There will be. We expect to have a range from novices to expert, I would say.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions, comments? Is this going to be divided into age groups?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Well, if there are no more questions, thank you, gentlemen. If y'all would be nice enough to remain till Mr. Bob can visit with you out in the lobby, sure would appreciate it.
We would definitely appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
If I may, while we're here, I'd like to extend an invitation to the council and all the city for a 9/11 service that we'll be having at 11 o'clock that morning. That will be at 2520 Goodman Road at the American Legion.
On September the 11th?
On September the 11th.
Thank you very much.
Open invitation to all. We do have a breakfast that morning from 8 to 10, and then service will be at 11 o'clock.
Thank you, and thank y'all for having that service, too.
Thank you for your time.
Thank y'all. All right, number 5 is planning. Mr. Barber, please.
Yes, sir, Mayor. On your planning agenda board tonight, the case number 2042SD has to do with Ravenwood Section G. The request is for final subdivision approval. The subdivision would accommodate 24 townhome lots in Ravenwood, which you'll be familiar with from our discussion in the last meeting. So this was heard by the Planning Commission on July the 28th, and it deals with the Ravenwood Plan Unit Development. I'm going to ask Jim if you'll scroll on down to the black and white map. As you'll recall, one more page. As you'll recall, Ravenwood is a plan unit development that was approved in DeSoto County sometime around the year 1990. It's aged. It was annexed by Horn Lake in the mid-2000s, and after it was annexed, the plan unit development was revised. Horn Lake asked for changes in it. They asked for elimination of some multifamily development and reconfiguration of various lots and so forth. And this is the plan unit development preliminary layout as it exists today. So all of this section of Ravenwood here is built out. You'll recall the discussion with the developer. You gave final approval to this section. We had quite a bit of discussion on it. I believe that was at the last board meeting that I attended. And then now here comes the final section of Ravenwood, and these are the townhome lots that the request is being made to develop the townhome lots. As you look at the townhome layout, there are 34 lots on this layout. And Jim, if you go one more page, you'll get a more detailed look at the townhome layout. So there's the lots as you see them here. There'll be attached dwellings, and I'll show you an image of the dwellings in just a moment. The green space is their common open space. This area to the left here is to serve as a detention area. And of course, you know this abuts the detention area that we discussed last time that's actually owned by the state of Mississippi. So the lots you see are configured here. And there's a small amount of green space. They are proposing a townhome association to maintain the green spaces and the common open spaces in the development. So this was presented to the Planning Commission. There was discussion about a number of elements of it, primarily being the size of the homes, the size of the townhomes, and some discussion of the drainage, the facilities to accommodate the drainage. And then also there was discussion about the tenure of the townhomes. The Planning Commission ultimately recommended approval of the final subdivision plat, subject to the homes being 1,350 square feet in size, heated area, and also that there be no rentals in the development. They would be home ownership only. There was some discussion if that was doable or not. I'm going to defer to Mr. Campbell to respond to that aspect of what was done. So if you'll scroll on down one more, you'll have a rendering of the homes, the townhomes that are proposed. You'll see they're garaged with a split level of a ground floor and an upper floor. That gives you an indication of the design of the townhomes that would be placed there. So that's Ravenwood, proposed final subdivision approval to accommodate the townhomes, 5.37 acres, and I think I said 24. There's 34 lots there, not 24. Developers here, Mr. Montesi, is represented by Civil Link, Nick Cronin. If you have any questions, yes, sir, Mr. Boston.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Bob? Yes. Alderman Boston.
I lost my mind. Oh, what was the Planning Commission's recommendation?
The commission moved to provide or to grant final subdivision approval for this, subject to 1,350 square foot home size heated, and that the homes not be rented. They would put a restrictive covenant in place that would prohibit renting the home. They'd have to be.
That was the only recommendation they had. They didn't vote on it, or they just put it before us.
Those two things, that was passed on a vote of 4-2.
4-2.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Bob?
Fair.
Alderman Bledsoe.
What about the sprinkler systems and stuff, Mr. Bob?
We did discuss, the chief has pointed out that they would have to be sprinkled. They'd be considered a multifamily occupancy, and that the units would have to be sprinkled when they were constructed.
What about the spacing? What about the spacing between each one? Has to be X number of feet? Can't build on the property line?
In those homes, the center wall is common, and then there's a 5-foot side yard setback. So you'd have 10 feet between two units. 2 units together, 10 feet, 2 units.
Okay.
Alderman Dupree, this is your ward, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
The HOA, is it going to be put in place?
We would So when they record the plat, we would have to require them to show evidence that they had incorporated the HOA and that it was in place on paper. From there, we haven't. That's all we can do. It's up to the developer to get it kicked off, and it's up to the homeowners to ensure that it functions over time.
Is there a way that you can get the developer to insure the HOA for 2 or 3 years until they get up and running?
When the developer speaks, I think he could speak to that, Alderman Dupree, yes, sir. He could fund it for X amount of time, and I'm sure he's going to have to do that up front anyway because he's constructing the homes. But that would be a topic to raise with the developer, yes, sir.
So the water runoff, where is it going? Because we have a problem now.
Civil Link Nick is here to verify what I'm saying. I'm not an engineer, but they're holding detention in the rear to the west here, and so my assumption is the runoff, or they'll engineer it so that the runoff goes right here.
Do you know how big that is?
I do not. The whole site is 5.3 acres, and so I'm going to assume that's about three-quarters of an acre, or maybe a little more than that.
All right, so the engineer says that it's big enough for that area? The retention pond? I'm
going to defer that to we take this at face value, so I would ask him that question in detail, yes, sir.
Okay. That's all.
Alderman Young.
And you're right, we did have a lengthy conversation over Section F. I imagine this is going to be a lengthy one as well. Is Mr. Montesi and his group, are they assuming the Chambliss Builders PUD? Are they acting as Chambliss Builders in this PUD?
Alderman Young, I'll need to defer that to the developer. My understanding is Mr. Montesi has purchased this site. I don't know who he purchased it from.
So either he's under the PUD or he's not under the PUD.
He's controlled by the PUD, yes, sir.
Okay, so he's acting under this PUD.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay. So they're going to build 15,000 square foot townhomes?
He's proposing 1,350.
This says 15,000.
Okay, you'll have to help me with what you're referencing.
I believe that was in the documents at the last meeting.
Oh, okay. So that's a typo. It should be 1,500.
Whose typo?
I think. Now, that was done back in 08, years ago.
Right.
But ultimately, they settled on, I think they discussed, it originally was approved at 1,300, and they asked them to build 1,500.
They being the Planning Commission.
Whoever was negotiating that agreement at that time, and yes, sir, it would have been the Planning Commission and staff.
Okay, because if you'll remember, the last time somebody stood up here and told us it was our fault as a board and a city that we didn't do our due diligence to collect on fees. So I'm going to refer back and say it's their fault not doing their due diligence to correct the PUD.
Mr. Mayor, let me jump in and try to clear this up right quick.
Yes, sir.
Clearly, that is a typo in that draft, and I did go back and pull the actual minutes, the city minutes, and it doesn't include the typo. It says 1,500 square foot in the city minutes. That typo is included in some Planning Commission or Planning Department files that have been circulated.
Okay. Yeah.
So the minutes say 1,500 square feet?
Correct.
All right.
So we're working on the minutes and not the PUD? Or both?
I didn't hear you.
Are we working on the minutes or are we working on the PUD?
Alderman Young, the minutes include the amendments to the PUD. So the PUD incorporates those 2003 agreements into the PUD text itself.
Okay. So they would be responsible for the $250 per unit?
For Section G.
Correct. Okay. And the homeowners association, we'll talk about that. And there's going to be a fence around this. Is this not correct? Is there going to be fencing around this?
We have no proposal for fencing. I've seen no proposal.
Okay. Just, we're getting away from the PUD again, okay. Maybe that was in the minutes. All right.
Anything else, sir?
No, it's useless.
Anyone else have any questions? Alderman Guys.
Did anybody from the public speak for or against this?
There was no one present to speak. It wasn't a public hearing, but there was no one present.
So no one came to the board meeting?
No, sir.
That's all I have.
That's all, Alderman. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Bob?
Yes, sir.
Alderman Dupree.
So earlier you said it was 1,350 square foot,
That's what the planning commission,
but in the
Condition,
PUD it's 1,500, so is it going to be 1,350 or 1,500 that they agreed to?
so the PUD documents, the agreements that were made when the plan unit development was revised, there's a statement here that says updates. Chambliss Builders will agree to build 1,300 square foot minimums up from the previous 12,500 minimum, which is a typo. Should be 1,250. So that was from back in '08. And I believe there was a different square footage proposed for the, well, no, the minimum for the townhomes would be 1,300 according to the PUD documents. The Planning Commission requested they be 1,350.
Anything else, Alderman?
No, thank you.
Alderman Young.
I'd like to ask Alderman Johnson about 5. You have a lot of townhomes over there. Can you elaborate to the specifics of the townhomes that you're currently dealing with in your ward?
The townhomes that I'm currently dealing with are not, they're not as pleasing and accommodating, I would say, as I would like. I do have a lot of problems with cleanliness and trash being there, and it's not as pleasing, I would say, as they should be, in my opinion.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody? Anybody? Thank you, Mr. Bob.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Montesi, would you and your assistants please step forward? Thank you, sir.
I have some of the drawings in large scale.
Excuse me just a moment, sir. Mr. Jim, you already have Mr. Chris's address. Would you please give your name and address to the city clerk? And get by the microphone, if you would, please, sir, so everybody can hear you. And we can hear you. There you go. You're tall.
Nicholas Cronin, address is 3629 College Road, South Haven, Mississippi. And I can kind of start off while y'all are passing around the drawings. Just wanted to pass out some full-scale drawings so y'all can see the layout well. One thing I want to make sure to point out is the very first drawing is what we did is we digitized that original PUD layout so y'all could better see what the original approved PUD layout for the townhomes really was. So the original layout was 39 homes, or 39 townhomes with 5 to 6 units per the building. You can tell they're very skinny, you know, and thus that's why we changed to a duplex townhome with a required garage, which we thought fit the neighborhood better, which was a much better product than what was originally in the townhomes. So we self-imposed, reduced our number of lots from 39 to 34. We also self-imposed going from 5 to 6 units per the building to 2 units per the building. And we also self-imposed requiring garages for every one. We thought for this property to not have a garage is just a recipe to have nothing but parking in front of them and ruin the aesthetics from the street. So we thought a garage is required for storage to help with trash issues, help with storage issues that can accompany a normal townhome development with no garage. So we thought that was a very well addition to the development to improve the product from the way it was originally approved back in the day. If you go to the second drawing, which y'all have already seen, but I'll just, this again so y'all can see it at a larger scale. This is what we're proposing with 34 duplex units, which is a little bit different from the original layout, but I will say that it's an improvement from the original layout with less units, which we believe will work better with the area. The third page is, again, just the plat for y'all to see in full scale, and the fourth page is the sample floor plans along with sample elevation renderings of the townhomes. One thing I will add is that we do plan to start an HOA. Mr. Montesi plans to be in place until 80% of the homes are complete. He plans to plant seed money to make sure the HOA is successful. He plans to fund it at the beginning and make sure that that HOA is successful and stays there when the development is complete. The 1350, now when we read the PUD documents, we really saw that the townhomes was not very clearly stated on a minimum square footage. There was a sentence in the PUD documents that stated that the developer would bring a design of a townhome and an elevation back at a later date. That's why originally at the Planning Commission we self-imposed a 1,250 minimum square foot, which they requested us to go to 1,350, which we agreed to do. I think I've hit on everything, all the questions that, if there's any questions y'all may have, we'd be more than glad to talk about it more.
Does anyone have any questions? Alderman Dupree.
Yes, sir. Let me ask Mr. Billy, what was it that you were going to check out, you and Mr. Bob earlier talking? I can't remember.
Yes,
Okay.
we need to discuss the rental condition at some point.
All right, so when I was talking about the water runoff earlier, who designed, I guess should I say, the retention pond?
So I can elaborate more on the detention pond. So there's 2 detention ponds there. There's one to the north, which is a wet detention pond that's already in place that is storing water, and for the north half of Ravenwood, that is not on our property and is owned by the state of Mississippi. The detention pond that is on our property is actually not just for the use of townhomes, but it is actually an active detention pond for the south portion of Ravenwood, and that was originally sized by the original designer and engineer of Ravenwood. However, part of my design, and since it's part of my development that I'll be designing, we will be required to check the sizing, which we've already done. We've topoed the bottom of the pond. We measured the outlet structures of it, check capacities, and make sure that it's big enough. And it is big enough to handle not only ours, but the part that's flowing into it to the south.
Mr. Vance, can I ask Mr. Vance?
Yes.
Did you go over and see that retention pond that we're talking about now? When we have the issue now of that retention pond overflowing and flowing down and into the other properties below it, and we have that issue ongoing now. I know we had talked about maybe getting the state or somebody to come in and clean it out, make it bigger, because as of right now, it's not big enough to handle what we have. The reason being is because I physically have seen that runoff water going down to other properties below it, and it's destroying their property.
if may I ask, is it the larger pond or the dry pond that's on this property? Do you know which pond it is?
No, it's the retention pond that we're having a problem with, when that water, have you seen, obviously you've seen that retention pond.
I've been to this one. We have not studied the larger one. So there's actually 2 retention ponds.
Right.
And so the smaller pond that's on this property, I have looked at. I have not looked at the bigger one.
Right. So we actually have a problem right now with this. And I've talked to the mayor a while back and Mr. Jim. I think we need to do a little better research on this water runoff, because we have a problem with the folks downstream right now.
Well, the big retention pond, that's on the state property, isn't it?
It's on the state property, and none of our runoff goes through it. It is actually completely separated from the from this. They operate individually. They have their own outlet control structure. And it's also possible that one of them is just in need of maintenance or possibly plugged or something like that. And if, as far as the pond that's on our property, of course, as far as Mr. Montese's plans, you'll be required to check capacity and get that up to standards before the city will accept it. That'll, that's just, normal process.
It'll be part of the engineering process by which we get signed construction plans. And they'll study the data that we provide with them. That'll tell them where all this water is coming from and then what level it's leaving that detention pond.
Were you able to hear him then, Alderman Dupree? What Mr. Montese said?
I did.
Did you hear him?
Yes, sir, I heard it. Also, so what did you say about the rental property? Are they going to be able to rent it or not? I'm sorry.
The commission, in the commission's recommendation, they placed a condition that the covenants for the townhomes prohibit renting the townhomes out, that they would be for ownership only.
But as of right now, we really don't know if that's legal, right?
If I could, Alderman Dupree, before we jump to that point, I'd like to go back to the retention or detention pond issue, because I think that is important.
Right.
And y'all will remember that I quizzed Mr. Smith, who was here last time for Section F about this, and he is the gentleman that actually drafted this PUD 30 or 40 years ago. He says that this PUD, his interpretation of this PUD is that the townhomes property is responsible for maintaining what y'all are calling the wet detention pond or the larger detention pond. Do you understand it to be that way?
We do not. We saw language in there that talks about that when the sections A through C reached a certain percent complete, that the HOA would be formed, and that they would, nowhere in there did we read that townhomes would be maintaining the wet pond. Since it is state of Mississippi property, not even on our property, we don't even know how we could go about maintaining somebody else's property as part of our HOA. Now, we do agree to maintain the detention pond that is part of our development and part of our phase.
Let me help you. The state of Mississippi will gladly convey you that detention pond for a minimal amount of money. And then I want to refer you to the PUD document that says it is proposed that a 3.5 plus or minus acre lake be constructed as an amenity and a retention facility for the drainage runoff. Only owners of lots located in the townhouse development will have use of the lake, as well as other common areas. HOA will be formed and started when 60% of the single lots are occupied. The lake will be constructed in Phase C. So his interpretation of that was, since the lot owners of the townhomes will be the only ones that have use of the lake, then the lot owners of the townhomes or their HOA would be required to maintain that detention pond.
Okay.
Now, you're talking about the big one, the one that's got water in it now.
Correct. I made sure with Mr. Smith that that's what he was talking about.
And our view would be that, that detention pond, if we take over the maintenance of it, now we're paying to maintain runoff for people that aren't even part of our development.
That may be the case, but that's the way the PUD was drafted. And as Alderman Young points out, everybody agrees that we're operating under the PUD that was approved years ago.
Okay.
We're kind of at a surprise for everybody here. And
Mr. Mayor, I disagree. This was discussed at the last meeting and is in the minutes, and Mr. Smith said it on the open floor that they were going, this section would be responsible for that detention pond.
all right, I forgot. Thank you, sir. Does anybody, before we go any further, have any more? Alderman Young.
I can tell it sort of caught you off guard with that one. Mr. One question, Mr. Are you related to the grocery store Montese's?
Yes.
Are you really? You the son of?
I'm the grandson of Fred.
Of Fred. Y'all had a heck of a grocery store.
Thank you very much.
Going back to what Alderman, and I know we're hung up on this. Well, we're not hung up. It's pretty definitive. Thank you, Billy. I appreciate that. On this detention pond here, and I know you want to put the one there. So I know where the water from this one goes. Where does the water from that one going to go?
They both discharge into the same ditch.
So that one that we already have an issue with down here with these houses, we're just fixing to dump some more water, whatever it rains, onto those folks down that way too.
No, that detention pond, both detention ponds are already in place and outlet structures are already built.
That detention pond that one's already there.
Yep.
Correct.
You know, that probably is, but I can't see it because you hadn't cut the grass in a while.
The grass was cut 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago.
Boy, it's grown quick.
Well.
Anyway, so the water's going to go in the same place.
The pipe structure in the townhome development, the detention pond's there, the pipe structure's in there.
Right, I saw that. Yeah, because I walked that whole thing. The 85, the 250 for the lots, for the homes that you're building, right? And you might say townhomes, but they stand alone as a home in Horn Lake. When will we see the $8,500?
So I guess shortly after, whenever it would be assessed, would that be as soon as the plat's recorded?
Whatever the timetable that kicks in, that's when I would.
But we will see it before you move a stitch of dirt.
Oh, sure.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
But the plat would be recorded after the dirt's moved. So the plat, upon the plat being recorded, I would assume, unless there's another time, maybe Bob needs to elaborate.
It was before a building permit would be issued, really before we record the plat.
Before you push an inch of dirt is when we're going to see the $8,500. Is that right?
Well, I want to, he's saying building permit for the homes. We would have to move dirt, put the sewer, water, roads in, then the homes would get built. So he's saying before we can build a home, at that time is when we would record the plat.
Is that what you're saying?
So it's typically triggered when the plat is recorded. So when that plat is recorded, he may have gotten his infrastructure in or built his roads or whatever, but he can't sell a lot or build a house until that plat's recorded. And he can't record that plat until all his obligations are met, including the one that you're talking about now.
So I know I'm backtracking. So if that's true, then how in the world did we let Chambers get by? It won't happen this time, though. Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Years.
I didn't understand your last comment. I didn't hear.
If that's true, in other words, they can't build a first house until they pay the $8,500, which is what I'm understanding here. Is that not what everybody else is understanding?
That's correct.
You're talking about the $250 a lot?
Right, the $250 a lot. It's $8,500 for these gentlemen here, which is fine. That's not a lot of money for these guys. I'm just trying to figure out how Chambers got by with pushing dirt and registering the plat without paying us our $40,000 and our $70,000. I'm just amazed at that. It won't happen this time, though.
Yeah, whoever was responsible at that time failed to collect.
I understand. Yeah. Sort of like 12,500 or 15,000. Yeah, I got you.
Anyone else have any questions or comments for Mr. Montesi? Or I didn't catch your last name, sir.
Croonin. Croonin?
Crewman, yes, sir. Alderman Geis.
I'm guessing you guys are gonna wanna go back and look at that stuff and come up with your opinion on it. I'm guessing.
Well,
You're the planner,
Well,
on that particular, part of the PUG document, no. If the attorney has called out something that I have not called out, then I'm gonna go with his reading of it. It's something we need to look at and see if that's
yeah, then,
a part of the plan.
and that's what I'm gonna say, if we're stuck at that spot there until that's guaranteed one way or the other, I think there's no need in discussing anything else until that item is taken care of. Because we can discuss everything else, but if that's gonna be a sticking point for you, there's no need in us we aren't gonna approve anything today. So I think that needs to be definitely ironed out.
Anybody else have any questions? Comments? Alderman Dupree.
I'm moving to table this till we get this issued, straightened out, also with the rental agreements, if there's going to be rental or not, along with the retention ponds. And
I would like to go ahead and at least address that to some extent tonight.
Sure. Okay.
Unless anybody has any real strong objection. I have looked at that issue, and let me say this first, a couple of points first. This is not about regulating short-term renters that rent through VRBO, Airbnb, HomeAway.com, whatever those are. This is not that case. We can regulate those type renters. There's some recent case law out of DeSoto County that actually says those aren't being operated as multi or single-family dwellings. They're vacation rentals, and they can't be done in single-family dwelling neighborhoods. That's not an issue. Likewise, I think it's settled that if Mr. Montesi wanted to record a covenant that prohibited rentals, he could. Or if the homeowners association gets started and they want to take a valid vote and record that covenant, they could. Tonight, at least with this application, we're talking about whether or not the city can require them to record a restrictive covenant prohibiting rentals as a condition of approval for their subdivision. And in my looking at that, that exceeds the city's zoning authority that they have. The city can zone land uses, but they can't zone the status of the person occupying that property. And in Mississippi, restrictive covenants have been deemed to be strictly private matters between parties that a government entity can't even enforce. So even if we could theoretically require them to record a restrictive covenant prohibiting rentals, we would have no enforcement mechanism to enforce it or do away with it. So once we get to the point of voting on this, my opinion is going to be that you can't require them to record a restrictive covenant prohibiting rental properties.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Would you be willing to put that in there? Just we can't do it, you can do it into your covenants?
Well, if it's not legal for the town to do it, why would it be legal for me to do it? I mean, and it,
Okay.
at first, I'm the one who's got the target on me because I will be the HOA president and person in charge of it. And if the HOA takes and gets fully established and they choose to do it, that would be their choice. It's not my intention to take and make this into a rental community. I haven't spoke to anybody at this point whatsoever. I've not talked to any builder. I've not talked to any rental, any hedge fund, anybody else about creating and selling these as rental units. It's not my intention to do that. Again, it wasn't my intention to live through 2007, 8, and 9 like a lot of us did, but I mean, that is not my intention right at this point, and that's all I can tell you. Now, again, I've known Mayor Latimer for a long time. When I first started working next door to Mayor Latimer, I had bought a duplex in Memphis. I lived in one side and rented out the other. And, Alan, you can attest to that.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, it was for me, it was a possibility of being able to get into home ownership. I mean, it was basically hedging my bet. And I'm not sure that this is anything close to the same, and it's not. And I know Horn Lake and South Haven have an awful lot of rental properties out there. Some of them are maintained better than others. The HOA would have a little teeth making everybody take condition of their unit. Would be if they could enforce the owner to do it probably easier than the town is able to enforce it. The town doesn't have any mechanism to really enforce. I mean, I've seen Christmas lights in neighborhoods that are still up. I see a lot of things that hadn't been enforced in an HOA governed community like this. It has a strong probability that it could regulate itself a lot better than a town could.
I agree with that. I've seen some HOAs that do just marvelous work, and I've seen some that they just kind of faded away. And as far as us enforcing that, after listening to our attorney, I don't think the city has any grounds to enforce a HOA agreement. That's a private agreement, as you said. So, if I understood that correctly, Mr. Billy?
Correct, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So, I know we have a motion to table this by Alderman Dupree. I think that he wants to consider the drainage issue.
That's right.
All right, sir. All right. Do we have a second to the motion?
Mayor. Second.
Second by Alderman Young. Is there any discussion? Mr.
Mayor,
Campbell.
will that be to the September 21st meeting?
That'd be fine.
September
That would be fine, Mayor.
September 21st.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Alderman Bledsoe.
Billy, one thing, H,
Is there a reason we can't do this in 2 weeks? And I mean, in 2 weeks, either we're going to get an agreement or we're not going to have an agreement. Is there any
The
reason
board,
why-
the board doesn't meet again until the first Tuesday in September. The way it fell, there's 3 weeks between the board meetings on the first and third Tuesday of each month. And that's the way that it fell by the calendar.
So can we be on the first Tuesday of September?
Yes, sir. I think that was.
That's the third, September 21st.
September 7th.
September 7th.
Did you say?
The
You
next
said the
board
first
meeting.
meeting in September?
The next board meeting? Just
Yeah, the
where we
first
get
meeting
some
in September.
clarification.
September 7th.
I would like to get some
September
clarification, and if it takes a week or 2 weeks, that'd be fine. Next board meeting.
Sir?
Next board meeting would be good.
September the 2nd?
That's fine.
Is that the motion? Mr. Billy?
Well, Mr. Mayor, the next meeting will be September 7th.
7th.
The only reason I suggested the 21st is we usually handle our planning items on the second meeting of the month. So I'm going to look down at Mr. Barber and ask if he can be here on September the 7th. So we'll table it till September 7th.
So is that the first Tuesday of the 7th?
Yes.
7th. They want to table it to September the 7th. A motion by Alderman Dupree. The second one's by Alderman Geis, wasn't it? Alderman Geis. Do we have any more discussion? Alderman Bledsoe.
I have one question. If the HOA doesn't take, we're having that problem now. Nobody knows what happened to the HOA, and now we have problems. So who's going to ensure that this thing keeps going? Billy, is that a you question?
It is, Alderman Bledsoe, and many of y'all have heard me ask that question to people who have presented before, other attorneys, developers, engineers. How do you guarantee that an HOA will function in perpetuity? And I asked Mr. Barber that just prior to the meeting, actually, and there's no good answer.
Well, we got like 2 right now that nobody knew. They had it at one time and it disappeared. So I just don't want to get in that situation again.
Mr. Montesi.
Can I speak to that? Typically, and I do a lot of development, Oakland, Tennessee, Lakeland, Arlington, and Memphis, and some in Shelby County. And all of these, as soon as we establish the HOA and we go ahead and record it and it becomes a legal entity, we take and turn this over to Collins, Doug Collins, and he is probably the largest. He probably manages, I guess, 600 or 700 of these HOAs. And I've never had any of them that have ever failed as long as you have a professional management service. And I certainly wouldn't be a manager of it, nor would I turn this over to the inmates, so to speak, and let 34 homeowners be in charge of it themselves. You get you a third party that's out there that has some teeth and that is able to enforce the laws. And I'm sure they've got some in South Haven. I guarantee they've got some in South Haven, Hernando. Collins does Emory Hills, and I just finished doing a section of Emory Hills off Pleasant Hill. And they do the section on the other side, and then as soon as ours is kicked in, they'll take and start managing it also. So the only way that you could ever really have an HOA that stays in effect is you're going to have a manager for it. So that way, if people don't pay their dues, they take and put liens against their house. They go through the legal action and the legal pursuit in order to make people conform, so that people paint their houses correctly, people maintain their yards, and if they don't, the provisions in there allow for the HOA to take and go out there and cut the grass and then assess people for what they haven't done. And it's worked seamlessly in probably the last 20 years that I've been doing this, and HOAs weren't really much involved prior to that. But in every development now, because you have to have detention basins, almost 100% of them have to have an HOA. When the development has a detention basin, that's probably one of the primary reasons that, and if you have an entrance monument to take and do irrigation, seasonal flowers, and that type of thing. So they've got their purpose, but most of them were created about 20 years ago when the state started requiring you to have detention basins.
So you're saying that you're going to be the HOA at first till it gets to be enough people in there.
That's correct.
And then you're going to require them to hire this gentleman or one of...
I'll maintain enough votes so that all the way down to the bitter end, I can turn this over to Collins, and I can assure you, I guess giving your word doesn't mean anything anymore, but I can give you my word that it'll be turned over and that the Collins will take and manage it, and I will personally fund it and make sure that the detention basin, the only maintenance we're going to have on the whole thing is going to be the detention basin. That's it. Now, I don't know if I'm going to agree to the big detention basin. That's more of a town issue and more of a subdivision issue. If that detention basin hasn't functioned for the last 10 years and has caused flooding, and the town, has not done anything to protect us, I think the town's got some liability in there. I'm just saying. But the documents that I read, and I'll go over this with Mr. Barber and with Nick again, but the documents I read, the whole intent was that it'd be ridiculous to think that you would have a 34 lot or a 39 lot that would be in charge of taking care of 2 detention basins, which triple the size of what the development is. I can't imagine that was the intent behind, and I have to read it again.
Anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. Montesi? Mr. Campbell.
That discussion is on Facebook video, so you're welcome to go back and see my discussion with Mr. Ben Smith about it.
I did. He's going to have to have a game.
He says that.
He's going to have a game, but he's not authority. He's going to have a gang mailbox, but you're going to have a gang mailbox where everybody's going to. It's going to have to be cut around there. You're going to have how's that supposed to happen? The only way it's going to happen is to have an HOA.
I'm not disputing that.
Well, y'all didn't require them to have an HOA.
They weren't they're not going to have cluster mailboxes, though.
They're going to.
The Section L 52 lots?
In the state of Mississippi, in the state of Tennessee, you won't have a mailbox on the house anymore. Period. It just won't happen. And post office is autonomous. So, I can tell you that the last 4 developments I've had, we've had a gang cluster mailboxes. And that's the new norm. And feel free to check with your post office, whoever's in charge of it here, but all subdivisions now you'll never see a mailbox in front of a house again.
Alderman Young.
You made two interesting comments there, Mr. Montese.
Yes, sir.
One is you said you will personally fund. What are you going to personally fund?
The HOA.
For how long?
Until 80% of the homes are established. Then once 80% of them are there, then you turn it over to Keith Collins and let him he'll take and assess funds. And we'll have an annual fee that's associated with each home. And I can bring you some copies of HOA documents.
No, I understand how they work. My question is if the owners don't pay and you put a lien on their house,
right, and
they turn it into a rental property, you've got zilch. How long is this guy going to work for zilch?
You're assuming that. I mean, I'm not
assuming anything. I'm asking a question.
But I mean, you can't. It'd be hard for me to believe that you're going to have 34 rental property owners if that was the case. And these aren't. These are going to be individual owners that are going to have are going to have and sit still while you take and put a lien against the most precious thing that they have. I mean, can I guarantee that the HOA is going to be funded forever? No, I can't do that.
Are you willing to forfeit and pay it up for at least a 4-year period to make sure it's successful?
Till 80% of them are there, and then at that point, it should be able to run on its own.
How long do you think it'll take to get to the 80%?
I don't know. It just depends on what the economy's like, depends on what interest rates are like. I couldn't tell you that. I would tend to believe that in a 4-year period, from the time that I actually record the plat, that I should be able to take and have most of the homes built out and sold.
In 4 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Alderman Dupree.
I've got a question because I don't understand. You said when you get done, you're going to turn it over to who?
To Keith Collins,
right,
which
Keith
is the
Collins.
HOA management company that I've had a great relationship with, and
okay. Who's going to fund him?
The assessment that's going to be on each individual homeowner. Each individual homeowner, when he takes and buys the house, the attorney will give him a copy of the HOA documents, and they will be informed that they have an annual dues. And when that house is closed, the attorney that closes on that house will collect for that year. And if I so choose, I can make it that we're collecting 2 years' worth of dues.
Okay. So you just a question because I don't understand. You just said that. Can you guarantee that HOA will be there in 5, 6, 7 years? But if you hire a management property person to oversee it, who pays that later after you do?
I'm assuming that the HOA management company will have enough strength that they'll be able to assess dues and put liens on, and then if that doesn't happen, I mean, it could happen anywhere. I don't know if any HOA is going to last for. I can't tell you that.
I see. That was my question. I don't understand here.
Well, and let me elaborate. So Keith Collins, if each home pays $300 a year, they get paid by a percentage of that. So they get paid for managing that portion, that HOA, based off those yearly dues.
So the homeowners association is going to pay this management company, correct?
Correct.
And if they don't pay this management company, they're going to get a lien against their
That's
contract,
correct.
right? So what if nobody? What if nobody pays that and the HOA goes out of business? Where's Chris going? What's he going to do? Is he going to put a lien on everybody?
And that's what he do.
So it's pretty much set with this company to have an HOA till whatever. He don't want it no more, or sells it out, or what? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. I don't think, I mean, I haven't ever seen Keith walk away from a subdivision that he was managing an HOA. I mean, again, you could have all 34 owners say, screw you, we're not going to do this, and I can't tell you that won't happen.
But they'll get a lien against their house.
They'll get a lien, and every year they'll take, that they don't pay their dues, they'll get a lien and they'll get a penalty, and they'll take them to court and they'll assess this, and there'll be a lien on their house. When they sell it, and if it was, I mean, I can't imagine that if somebody that sticks their neck out and buys something that's so precious as a first-time home, and these are going to be first-time homeowners, is going to take and let somebody cloud up. Not only that, it clouds their credit too.
Right, so you said take your word at it. We can do that. But if it's not on paper, it didn't happen, would you be willing to put it on paper?
For 4 years?
To turn it over after 4 years.
Or 80%, when 80% yes, and that's typically what the HOA document contains.
Okay, so as long as you put something in writing.
I'd be happy to.
Saying that this is what's going to happen,
I'd be
instead of
happy
just
to.
a word. I'm not discrediting you at all. It's just, it needs to be on paper.
Now, after 4 years, if everybody doesn't pay, I can't tell you what's going to happen. They're going to assess, and they'll put a lien on everybody's home. And at some point, when they squeeze them hard enough, maybe these people will pay it. I've never seen it happen like that.
Okay, fair enough.
Anyone else? Alderman Johnson. Before we go any further, I know you've never met Mr. Montesi before, and Mr. Montesi will argue all day long, but he is a man of his word. So I certainly appreciate that. But these gentlemen didn't know you personally, so I understand their question, and I hope. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Alderman Johnson.
Mr. Montesi, thank you so much for your thorough explanation. We have had several problems with HOAs. It looks good on paper, but when it comes down to taking care of properties and doing things that need to be done, I've learned personally that these HOAs are dying out. The people who are running them can't be found, and things aren't getting done. Several people are trying to start them back up, and it's just not happening. So please forgive us if we're, constantly going over that, but it has become a very serious problem with us. And so we want to be sure that if this is put into place, that it's something that's going to continue and not die out like it has done so much in the past.
And Ms. Johnson, I'll tell you, a lot of it has to do with the intent of the people. If you've got people that just don't want to abide by the law and don't want to do what the rules and regulations do, you're going to have chaos. We've witnessed it in the last couple of years of people that just don't want to do what they're supposed to do. I don't know how you enforce that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So a lot of it's going to determine the type of people that you have there and whether or not they are willing to take my experience has been that if these people take and keep the grass weed-eated and keep everything under control, most people welcome a homeowner association because you don't want to go over and knock on your neighbor's door and tell them to cut the grass because you look like you get in a pigsty. You'd rather have a third party do it so that way you don't have this kind of conflict. And Collins has been I've known him for almost 35 years, and he's thorough, and now he may have one that he cannot make successful. I don't know, but I don't think that's the case.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Mr. Montesi, or y'all have anything else to say to the board?
No, sir.
I know I'm being repetitious, but if I understand you correctly, if you turn this over to this gentleman, he makes a living by running HOAs, and he does not hesitate to file a tax lien on them there. Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments? All right, we have a motion by Alderman Dupree. We had a second by Alderman Geis. Alderman Young. Excuse me, Alderman Young. To table this to the meeting on September the 7th. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young. Aye. Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe. Aye. Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you, Mr. Montesi. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
All right,
Mr. Mayor,
Sir.
before we leave planning and before Mr. Barber steps out, Mr. Barber, I need to make an announcement on the Sage Creek PUD that was noticed to be heard tonight. When do you want the board to consider that?
Be the third, we'll re-advertise for the third, or the second board meeting in September.
You are going to re-advertise? Okay, never mind, Mayor, I don't need to make an announcement then. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Barber. All right, we now have the up-to-date proclamation for the Purple Heart City. Whereas our nation and its principles have been defended throughout history by brave and patriotic men and women who willingly sacrificed their own well-being for the cause of freedom and democracy. And whereas President George Washington created the badge of military merit to honor brave military personnel, and whereas in 1932, on the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, the badge of military merit was renamed the Order of the Purple Heart. And whereas today, the Purple Heart is awarded to honor the combat wounded veterans of this country and those who made the ultimate sacrifice and never returned home. And whereas our veterans have earned profound and eternal gratitude from all the people of this state for their willingness to risk life and limb for the sake of this nation, its people, and its cherished freedoms. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Allen Latimer, do proclaim August the 7th, 2021 Purple Heart Day and the month of August to be Purple Heart Recipient Recognition Month in Horn Lake. I urge all people in our city to join me in acknowledging and honoring this state's veterans who have been wounded in battle while defending the principles of democracy, individual freedom, and human rights. Thank you. I think we all honor those who did that. Thank you all very much for bringing this. Thank you. Yeah. We're applauding our veterans. That's who we're applauding. Yes. All right. Number 6 on the agenda is new business. Letter A is up to the members of the board to elect their mayor pro temp.
Mayor,
Alderman Bostic.
I'd like to make a motion to elect Alderman Klein to be the mayor pro temp for the next 4 years.
We have a motion by Alderman Bostic. Do we have a second?
Second.
Alderman Bledsoe made the second. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Guys.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Letter B is a budget transfer in the Park Department.
Mayor,
Alderman Guys.
make a request to approve the budget transfer in the Park Department.
Motion by Alderman Guys. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, Mayor.
Second by Alderman Bostic. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Guys.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Letter C. Do we have a motion?
Mayor,
Alderman Johnson.
I'd like to request to approve the agreement with Protect Youth Sports for background checks of all coaches.
Motion by Alderman Johnson. Do
I'll
we have a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
Second by Alderman Dupree. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Guys.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed.
I have a question, Mayor.
Alderman Bostic.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes, sir.
when you do these background checks of all coaches, who's going to make the decision whether they become a coach or not? You're talking about rec coaches, right?
Yes, anybody in our youth sports program, when they apply online, They'll go through the background check, and then we'll determine it at the office.
That decision will be made by you
And Chris, our sports director.
okay.
Anybody else? Alderman Bledsoe.
Hey, Drew, what, we used to have one that did the same thing. We've been in it for years. Did y'all decide not to use them, or?
Yes, sir. We do currently have one. Protect You Sports is sanctioned by Dizzy Dean. It's the Dizzy Dean background check program, and it integrates with our Jarvis system, and it's cheaper. So.
Okay. Do y'all teach classes and stuff to your coaches, what to do, what not to do, and then they have to take a test?
Yes, sir. We do go through training with our coaches.
Okay. That's what we did when Jackie was coaching. Had to do it twice with him.
They never did a background check on me, though.
Should we have?
Yeah.
All right, moving on down. Letter D. Do we have a motion?
Mayor,
Alderman Geis.
I make a motion to declare a Stingray Bush Hog serial number C as in Charles 31200885406 and Woods Bush Hog serial number 876745 as surplus property in the street department and dispose of the same pursuant to Mississippi Code annotated section 17-25-25 and finding the fair market value of any property to be recycled, destroyed, or scrapped to be zero or otherwise not exceeding its value as scrap.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Motion by Alderman Geis. Second by Alderman Johnson. Do we have any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Guys.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Letter E. Do we have a motion?
Mayor,
Alderman Johnson.
I'd like to request to declare a 1997 Ford F-150, VIN number 1FTZF1769, WCB26408 as surplus property in the Parks Department and to dispose of same pursuant to Mississippi Code annotated section 17-25-25 and finding the fair market value of any property to be recycled, destroyed, or scrapped to be zero or otherwise not exceeding its value as scrap.
We have a motion by Alderman Johnson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Bledsoe. Is there any discussion?
Mayor.
Alderman Young.
Drew, that 97 Ford, could it be used in another department?
No, sir. It's inoperable. It's going to cost a lot of money to fix it.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please, Mr. Jim.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Guys.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. All right, letter F. Do we have a motion?
Mayor,
Alderman Geis.
I make a motion to approve the service agreement with Neil Schaefer for the Apple Creek EWP NRCS project to include the survey phase at $2,400, design phase not to exceed $7,500, and the construction phase not to exceed $4,200.
We have a motion by Alderman Geis. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Bledsoe. Do we have any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Guys.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. On letter G, Mr. Campbell, with the uncertainty of things right now, if the board votes on this, they're not bound in case we can't use the Landers Center, are we?
Mr. Mayor, I don't I don't see the contract was included in the packet, so I don't know the termination provisions of that contract, but I will make a note to review them.
Thank you, sir. Does the board need to go ahead and vote on this tonight, or wait till the 7th of September?
Mr. Mayor, Mrs. Linville is not present, so I don't know whether or not this is time sensitive or not.
I don't either.
Can we make the motion pending?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Alderman Geis, would you like to make the motion on letter G, please?
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract with Captivating Balloons and the Lander Center for the 2021 Veterans Program to be paid with hotel motel tax proceeds, finding the said events organizations promote the attributes of the city and/or promote the city's tourism and economic development, contingent upon what the city attorney finds out about the cancellation policy.
We have a motion by Alderman Geis. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Alderman Klein. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Okay, we're down to number 6. Mayor Alderman correspondence.
Mayor, we have
No,
H and I.
What?
There was,
we got H and I.
Oh, okay. Excuse me. All right. We're back to letter H. Do we have a motion?
Mayor,
Alderman Johnson.
I'd like to request to approve interlocal agreement for digital orthophotography with the country, the area municipalities, DeCrua and E911, Commission for updating the GIS area photography at a cost of $37,650, with the City of Horn Lake's share being $5,696.67.
Do we have a second?
second.
Second by Alderman Geis. This is that GIS thing where you make which we all rely on now. I believe, Mr. Jim, this is supposed to be even more, smaller detail, smaller square than the last one?
Yeah, they do have capabilities of 3D that I don't know if this one is going to have that, but they do have capabilities of 3D projection in some of these they're trying to get.
What the county did, they took the population. They took that a figure, based on our population, that'd be our share, right there. All right, we got a motion, we got a second. Do we have any more discussion?
Mayor,
Alderman Johnson.
I said with the country, it's with the county. I do want to make that correction.
Oh, I know it's been a long day. And you've had a long day. You've been at school all day. We've had a motion, we had a second, no discussion. Roll call, please.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Letter I. Do we have a motion?
Mayor.
Alderman Bostic.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to request to approve the agreement with the DeSoto County Election Commission for the use of Fire Station 3 as a polling station for the 3rd District County elections and state elections.
Motion by Alderman Bostic.
I'll second, Mayor.
Second by Alderman Dupree. Do we have any discussion?
Mayor,
Alderman Geis.
since that's moving from my ward, what place will be used for city elections? Because isn't that also where Alderman Dupree's elections are held as well?
That is correct.
Yes, sir, but they're different dates.
Well, on a city election, it would be on the same day. So we would have Ward 1 and Ward 3 going into the same fire station.
But it's the 3rd District County election, sir.
Yeah, this is strictly for county.
Is
so-
this for county? So
Yes, sir.
nothing's been decided for
For municipal, yes.
Not
Yeah,
yet.
not yet.
Okay, that's what I was
Yes,
asking.
sir.
It is
Yes,
just
sir.
the county and state.
Okay, we had a motion, we had a second. Do we have any more discussion? Thank you, sir. Roll call, please.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. All right, number 6, Mayor Alderman correspondence. Just to let the citizens know, is that you, Representative Hester? Hey, how are you doing? Welcome, welcome. You're going to have to quit wearing that mask so I know who you are. We're honored to have our state representative here tonight. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. All right. The DeSoto Economic Council worked with our 2 U.S. senators and with our U.S. Congressman, Congressman Trent Kelly, to arrange for a quick tour of DeSoto County, including the cities, to show them our problems and our needs. We are honored they're going to be in here Thursday, and we thank the Economic Council for putting this together. We will be showing them about our flooding problems in Horn Lake, and hopefully asking them, and we will be asking them, to support the Corps of Engineers funding request to help alleviate these flooding problems in our city. And let's see, our next meeting will be after Labor Day, so everyone please have a good Labor Day, be safe, enjoy your families and friends, and let's pray this pandemic subsides and ends quickly. Alderman Young, you have anything, sir?
No, sir.
Alderman Dupree?
No, sir.
Alderman Johnson?
Yes, sir. Just want to thank everyone that participated in the back-to-school bash that was at Horn Lake Intermediate. I do think it was a tremendous success, and it took every single one of us to make sure of its success. So we're looking for bigger and better things next year. I certainly appreciate it. I know all the students and parents and teachers at all of our schools appreciate it as well.
Thank you, ma'am. Alderman Bostic, do you have anything, sir?
I'm good.
Alderman Geis?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
The animal shelter is full. It's beyond capacity. Since we hired the current animal control director, they have not had to euthanize an animal except for medical and one for being very aggressive where it couldn't be trained. So we would hate for them to actually break that trend. So if you're looking for a new dog or a cat, go by there. There's a lot of great ones, and let everybody know. So we need to get a few out so we don't have to do that. That's it.
Thank you very much, sir. Alderman Bledsoe, you have anything, sir?
No.
Alderman Klein?
Well, I'd just like to thank the aldermen for their support.
Congratulations to you, sir.
Thank you.
I know you do your usual excellent job, all your experience being chairman of different committees. Thank you, sir. All right, department head and correspondence. Okay. Chief Ryle, you have anything, sir?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything tonight.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Chief Ryle?
I do, Mayor.
Alderman Dupree.
Chief, I want to thank you. I've seen more officers in the subdivisions. I've seen 4 in the last 2 days in our subdivision, and I appreciate that. I even stopped and thanked them for doing it. Appreciate it.
Anyone else? I do. Chief Ryle, you're aware of that house down at Churchwood subdivision with all those cars in the yard?
Yes, sir, I am.
And I know you have sent your code officers down there numerous times, and I appreciate it. But from the feedback I have gotten, that fellow knows his limits, and he knows the regulations and ordinances. So what he's doing so far, even though it's an eyesore, is within the city ordinances. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, in your opinion, to try to stop another issue like that, I think it would be advisable if the board looked at that ordinance. Would you agree with that?
Mayor, my recommendation to aldermen of that ward has been to possibly look at rezoning the north side of Church Road from west of Calvary Baptist to the railroad tracks. Rezone it. Of course, you'd have to get with the planning commissioner to determine the best zone for that. But right now, that property is zoned AR, which allows for what he's doing that
Right.
people are complaining of. So that's been my recommendation, is to possibly see what could be done as far as getting just those houses that front Church Road on the north side rezoned.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Alderman Bledsoe, did you have any comments, or?
Yeah, I think the ones on the south side already zone something else besides AR. And Billy, if we rezone it and we say you can't have cars anymore, is there a way out?
Well, I assume since Chief Rowell made that suggestion, there is a limit on the number of vehicles in a particular zone you're thinking of besides AR?
In the residential zones, you have to be parked on a paved surface. You cannot be parked on an unpaved surface. So in AR, there's no restrictions on that, which is part of the complaint here with this particular residence is the number of cars, and he's parking off of paved surfaces. If he was limited to paved surfaces, unless he wanted to spend money and pave lots of his property, then obviously that would limit the amount of vehicles that he could park at his residence.
Alderman Bledsoe, with respect to a rezoning, the city could initiate an application for rezoning of one property or multiple properties, but the same standard would apply to a city application that applies to anyone who comes in and files an application. And that is, the city would need to show by a preponderance of the evidence that the character of the neighborhood has changed and that there is a public need for the rezoning. So there would have to be some proof put on in order to survive a challenge by any interested property owner in that area.
Thank you, sir. Well, at least we got food for thought. Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Oh, Mayor,
Alderman Bledsoe.
is there any zone that they can't have 3 or 4 cars? Because if he blacktops that whole thing, he can have 60 cars. And then we just try to sell the foot.
That's true, but I would think that would be something, again, with the planning ordinance, that the planning department, planning commission, they would have to approve for him to be allowed to pave that much surface.
So they can turn it down?
Yes.
I would believe so, yes.
Okay, that's all I need. Thank you.
Now, I've got a question, Mayor.
Alderman Klein.
If they do rezone it, there's no grandfathering in on something like this?
No, sir, correct.
Okay.
Anyone else? Mr. Gary, you have anything for the board?
No, sir, I don't have anything.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Mr. Gary? Chief Linville, you have anything for the board, sir?
I would just like to let everybody on the board know, you may or may not know, on August the 6th, we had another firefighter had a motorcycle wreck. He was in the med for almost a week. He's home recuperating. He's doing real well. But again, just pray. It's firefighter paramedic Reeves, Philip Reeves, and it happened at 51 and Church Road on his way to work that morning. So he is recuperating. He's doing well. I spoke to him on the phone. Spirits is good, but just keep him in your prayers that he gets back up and going and at least comes back to work. I told him he could have a few days off, but I didn't need him off forever. But I don't know how long he'll be out at this point. We're still.
I know he was injured pretty severely.
Yeah, he broke his hip and pelvis. He's got quite a lot of lower. It's all lower. So he is doing well. I just want to let you be aware of it since he is an employee of the city. Been here about 3 years, I believe. 2.5, 3 years.
Thank you.
And
Anybody have any questions or comments for Chief Limble? Mr. Drew, you have anything for the board?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board. I do not have anything tonight.
Anyone have any questions, comments? Mr. Drew? Mr. Vance, you have anything for the board?
Not at this time, Mayor.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Vance?
Mayor.
Alderman Geis?
Since he's no longer here, has anything been done on former Alderman Roberts' flooding issue?
Well, if you're speaking about the ditch that's located behind his house that runs north-south,
The one he mentioned all
nothing
the
has
time?
been done at this point, but we are continuing, as I told him, it's hard to find money for that type of project, a storm drain project. So we are continuing to look, and I think we have identified a couple of different potential funding agencies for that, being the Corps being one, and then the other is possibly what we call Transportation Alternative Plan, which is stretching that funding criteria some, but it is an opportunity there. So we're looking for funding is what we're doing right now.
Yes, yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Mr. Vance?
Yes, sir.
Are they still got a completion date that they're shooting for the two-lane bridge?
Let's see, Mayor, the contract completion date is September the 28th.
28th.
Yes, sir. I haven't talked to the contractor to see if he's going to maybe be ahead of that schedule as far as opening traffic, but I can check with him and get an update and let you know.
It just looked like it was coming along fairly well.
Yes, sir. The walls are up now, and they're working on the end walls, so they're moving along, but
Yes, sir.
still a little bit more to do.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, Mayor.
Alderman Klein?
I was going to ask, you know how we're coming along with the criteria in the roads, since we got that new process put in place?
Yes, sir. We have developed the street map that they will be collecting the data on. Have turned that over to the data collection folks, and they are planning or hoping to be through with the data collection by the end of September. So at that time, we'll take that data and put it into our program for street management, and that's going to take a little while to develop the program, but hopefully a couple of months after that, we'll have your report.
All right, so we're really not going to have it in place to be able to put money towards fixing those roads based on their criteria? That's coming later, is what you're saying?
Yes, sir. It'll be about 3 months from now before we have a report, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, Mayor, is there a way that we can amend or anything to where, I'm new at this, so I'm just wanting to make sure that somewhere in the budget, that once we do get this information, that we're able to, move forward and getting them repaired,
Well, there'll be money in the budget for road repairs. Now, which roads are repaired will be the decision of the Public Works Department and Mr. Vance with the approval of the board.
But this program that they're going to come out in 3 months, it's going to do it in a 5-year, is that?
Yes, sir.
A 5-year plan stating how you would prepare it, so.
Yeah, but
depending on what that number is going to be.
we don't know.
Yeah.
Mr. Robinson.
In the draft budget that you have, there is a first phase. There's $500,000 in there specifically to begin potentially this spring when the weather warms up. But there is $500,000 in there to start the first phase of this program.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have any questions or comments for Mr. Vance? Mr. Robinson, you got some good news for the board?
Well, I did put at your seats, sales tax came in yesterday, and this that came in August is actually representing June sales, since sales tax is 2 months behind receiving that from the state. you can see that it was $602,195, so that is $54,790 better than this time last year. I also included a new year-to-date budget report stapled to that also. You can see year-to-date the sales tax. We had budgeted $5,650,000, and we have brought in $6,266,966, which is 616 plus more than we had budgeted. So that is a good thing, being over budget in that. Also, the hotel motel tax, I included a sheet in there. Also, that came in. It comes in typically the same time that sales tax. That was 31,000 plus, which brings our total for our economic development fund at 280,714, which we had budgeted 277. Next year's draft budget that you have, I have put that at 300,000. So at the rate this is going, we should easily be able to make that budget for the 2022 budget for the hotel motel tax. And you did see in that draft budget an increase in sales tax also. If it runs true to how our sales tax is running this year, it should not be a problem of meeting budget next year also.
Did you have another announcement about the other fund?
Yes, sorry.
Thank you.
Also yesterday, after a long process of going back and forth because they had some issues with our DUNS number, we did finally get approved for our Arpa funds, which is the COVID funds, the American Rescue Plan Act that President Biden had put in place. Our total amount for that program will be a little over $6,700,000. Our first installment hit the bank yesterday, and that was a little over 3.3. It was 3.353, so a little over $3.3 million hit the bank yesterday. And I have set that up with the bank where that will go into a separate fund. You'll start seeing it in your printout. It'll be called the Arpa Fund. By regulations, we have to have that in a separate fund, and any interest we make off of that fund can be used unrestricted. But those funds are restricted, and I'll print out those. There are 4 components, but the one that mainly is less restrictive for us to use is water sewer. But yes, that was over $3.3 million.
And thank you for your hard work. When he referred to the DUNS number, the state computer got a brain of its own, and it was flashing back to our old DUNS number from years back. We had to go round and around. Mr. Jimmy, whatever you call that stuff, when you scan it and send it with the DUNS stuff with the right number, but their computer kept going back to the old DUNS number. Mr. Jim finally got it straightened out with them. Thank you very much, sir. Mm-hmm. Anybody else have any questions? Anything?
Mayor.
Oh, Alderman Young.
All I want to do, Jim, is I just want to tell you and the crew that are working down on that hall that y'all have done a really good job in the hours that you put in. It's taken a lot of work to get these numbers together. You've done a lot, the whole crew back there, and it's nice to have a new CFO back there that can, we're going to have to get her some books in her seat or something, because she's got paperwork so high we can't see her unless we look over. But y'all have done a great job back there, Mayor. You've done a great job at getting everybody, and it's just nice to see things happening the way they need to be happening in Horn Lake, and y'all are to be commended for the efforts that y'all are putting in at burning the midnight oil. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a training set up for Miss Marie with Munis. Munis is our financial software, and we've got 2 trainings already set up in September that will help her and Miss Crystal that has been AJ's kind of been training her in a lot of things. Today I was doing a little more training with Miss Marie, but they've got a ways to go to learn Munis, but it's good to have them back there, especially with Miss Julie out. And just keep Miss Julie in your prayers. She has a major operation surgery on the 26th. My pastor also had a similar surgery. They actually go through the front of your neck, open you up, move your esophagus out of the way to work on your spine in your neck. That's a major ordeal, so keep her in your prayers on the 26th of this month.
Thank you. And my sister had that type of surgery, and it's very difficult, very frightening procedure to go through. Mr. Campbell, did you have anything?
I do not, Mr. Mayor.
And thank you, Alderman Young, for recognizing the hard work of those folks down that hall. So, all right, if there is no more...
Mayor, one question.
Alderman Dupree.
One question. What's the status on the $250,000 from the state for our filtration system in Twin Lakes?
That is in the bank. It's been in the bank for...
So we did get it?
Yes, for some time, and yes. That also, all of these have very strict paperwork to follow, and I have to continue to turn in different reports. The $200,000 that we had for two-lane bridge, I just did the updated report for that, and now that we're getting, you all are approving payments on that, those have to show on those reports. But the first annual or quarterly report for that has not come out yet, but I have to keep the reports up to date on those as we put that out to bid, when the bid is accepted and awarded, and then the progress of that whole process.
When will that start?
Well, Vince could probably answer that. That'll have to go out to bid, but we'll also have to be able to come up with the additional funding, because that whole project's going to be close to $1.5 million. I think $1.4 million is what the bid came into. So the city's going to have to come up with a lot more.
Can we use some of the money that we got in from the COVID relief? That's water related?
It is. Yeah, we just got to look at that a little closer, because even the lieutenant governor, he's going around the state recommending that Arpa funds, we kind of hold on to it for that first year to see if the federal government's restrictions or guidelines change or anything. So they're recommending that we let it build interest for a year, but obviously that is up to the board. But yeah, we can apply that. Would fit along with the water sewer.
Yeah, I would rather not wait a year, because our water is still brown, and it's really unacceptable what it is, and we really need to stay on top of this. I appreciate you guys would take in consideration that we need help over there.
That's been going on for several years.
Yes, sir.
We
finally got something.
Some money.
And we need to step forward and do something about it.
I know the members of the board who are returning from the last board are familiar with the brown water over there and all the issues we've had with it.
And Mr. Vince is also putting some other things together that will help with that issue even further past the filtration system as far as line replacement and everything. So we're working on a lot of different aspects and looking at a lot of different potential for even additional funding and where we can use this funding. We have to use this $6.7 million by 2026. So they've given us a ways out there, but all this has to be spent by 2026, unless the federal government comes back and changes any of that. But as of right now, in the all the paperwork says by 2026.
Thank you.
Anything else, Alderman?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Representative
Mr.
Jackson
Mayor.
McCray, our hotel and motel fee bill, we have to have it again at 5 years. It's going to be coming up, and we would certainly, ma'am, appreciate if you would look at it, give it your consideration, and if you see fit to support it in the House. You heard tonight how it's so helpful to us. I'm not going to pin you down. I just asked you to look at it, and I know you'll vote the way you think is the right way. Does anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Campbell. In regards to the Church Road property and the rezoning, what do we need to do to get that ball rolling? I know we need to submit something to the planning. Would that come from you and the mayor putting something together and bring before the board?
Let me look at it, Alderman Klein, and if it requires board action, I'll put it on the next agenda.
Okay, good.
Thank you, sir. If no one else has anything, do we have a motion to go into closed determination?
Mayor, I make a motion to go into closed determination.
Motion by Alderman Geis. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
I don't know who seconded it.
No, go ahead.
Alderman Bledsoe, second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Vote is 7 in favor, none opposed. If y'all will excuse us, ladies and gentlemen.
What do you say? What do you say about that? You talked on? I talked to him about 2 weeks ago.
Everybody ready? Do we have a motion to come out of closed determination?
Mayor,
Alderman Geis.
I make a motion to come out of closed determination.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Geis. We have a second by Alderman Bledsoe. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Robinson.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. I have an amendment to make to the Purple Heart Proclamation. Now, therefore, it's the last paragraph. I, Alan Latimer, do hereby proclaim August 7th, 2021 Purple Heart Day and the month of August to be Purple Heart Recipient Recognition Month in Horn Lake and designate Church Road a Purple Heart part of the Purple Heart Trail through DeSoto County. And I urge all people in our city to join me in acknowledging and honoring this state's veterans who have been wounded in battle while defending the principles of democracy, individual freedom, and human rights. Mr. Campbell, if we're going to designate part of a road, do we need a motion for that?
No, Mr. Mayor, it's okay just being in the proclamation.
Does anyone have any? All right, thank you. All right, moving on. I don't know where my agenda is and all this paperwork. May I look off of yours, Mr. Campbell? Thank you, sir. Moving on, at the request of Alderman Johnson, go back to the consent agenda, letter H. Alderman Johnson, do you have any specific questions, or would you like for Mr. Robinson to explain that more?
I just would like for it to be explained more.
All right, that would apply to the letter I also.
Yes, sir, H and I.
H and I. Mr. Robinson, please, sir.
Yes, and Chief Rowell could also speak to this. I did email, when I've got this notification, I did have an email exchange back and forth, and sorry I didn't print that out for you all with this in particular, because in the statement that's in your packet, it says that we are on conditional status due to the findings. From my email exchange back and forth, I wanted to get findings from the 2018 audit. I just wanted to get some clarification on that because, one, when you have findings on an audit that has already been accepted, and those findings don't really go away from that audit. So I did get clarification, and from what I understand, and Chief Rowell could speak to this, that this conditional status will go away when we present them with the a current up-to-date 2019 audit, was my last response from them. And you might ask Chief Rowell if he has a different understanding.
Chief, do you have any different understanding? All right, sir.
How close are we to getting our audit?
Yes, he had spoke to you all and said he would present that on September 7th, our next board meeting. He did flood us with about 6 or 7 more requests. Some Billy looked at, and we're working on those. But these requests that he sent are really kind of logistic things that go in the body of the audit. All the financial and the audit part is complete. This is more of the housekeeping type of things where we answer some of the things presented in the audit, and we have our statements in there. He's wanting those statements from us. Billy's looking at one item that he requested, and then Billy's got a letter that all attorneys have to submit that for any outstanding litigation that we have. That has to go in the audit also. So he sent those to us today. We're working on those, and he's still saying, he told both myself and AJ, because there was a question that came up about retiree insurance, and you'll probably see more information on that come out from this audit. But he was getting information from AJ also. But he told both of us that he still plans to be here September 7th with a completed audit.
Yes, Chief. But did you receive the money? You got approved for the money, didn't you?
That's what is before y'all tonight. Yes, they did approve our grants. Actually, they approved our grants earlier in the year. We've already done the resolution accepting the grant. They just went back and decided we want to put a conditional status on these grants because we have not gotten an FY19 audit on file yet, causing them concern. So they went back and redone their resolution, resent it for us, for y'all, to authorize us accepting the grant now with a status.
Okay. So we need to vote on that again tonight, then.
Correct, Mr. Mayor. That's the reason it was on the consent agenda.
Mayor,
Alderman Guy.
I have a question. When it talks about audit findings, is that the same things that were at the end of that last audit saying that we needed to change to make the next audit better? The same issues that MDOT had, the things they were seeing in that?
Yes, if you look at those findings, and if they are basing this on getting our 2019 audit and seeing if those same findings are over there, you will be happy unless he does a 360, because he sent me a rough draft of the audit, and none of those findings from 2018 will be on this one. As of right now, unless he clarifies, does a little more clarification on this retiree insurance issue, that will be the only finding on there.
Okay, so those previous ones from 18, in his opinion, they aren't an issue anymore.
Correct.
Is that what that would mean?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
For the benefit of the board and myself, when you talk about a retiree insurance, you're talking about health insurance?
Yes, you all voted, I think back in 2011 to provide that benefit to retirees. Since that point, I think Chief Whaley and Miss Ann were the only ones that took advantage of that. Okay, and Alderman Geist.
Until I got elected.
Yes. We have nobody on it at this point. We were unaware, because it has never come up since I've been here, that any municipality offering retiree insurance has to provide a separate report. And we did receive a copy of South Haven's report that they did for this. It's just justifying who's on it, how much money is spent towards this retiree program. It has to be, by state statutes, has to have an independent report showing that. And he let us know that. So the draft that I received, none of those findings from 2018 are on there. It's just he has questions about that retiree insurance.
So even though we have nobody on it, we still have to do it?
Correct, because they were on there into 2019, which this audit would be in that same category. And actually, I have pulled up, you probably can't read it, kind of my last correspondence with Ms. Wilkerson. She had replied, if you receive the 2019 audit, you can submit it for review. Based on review, the conditional status may or may not be removed. So that was the last correspondence.
Alderman Geist.
Just for clarification to the public on the retiree insurance, the city isn't paying their insurance. When you retire, you can choose to pay for it yourself, and you're getting the discount of a group, but the city doesn't provide insurance to people that are retired. You're actually paying for it out of your pocket.
All right. Does that clarify everything, H&I, for everybody?
I have one other question.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
So Chief Rowell, this is the same person that you got your information from?
Yes, ma'am. What he stated.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right. What was the other thing out here?
We need to make these motions, I believe.
If there's no other discussion
Okay.
on this, I'll make the
All right.
motion.
Do we have a motion? Alderman Bostic.
If there's no other discussion about the items H and I on the consent agenda, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Alderman Bostic. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Bledsoe. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Is there anything else we had for the open floor?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I think Mr. Robinson wanted to discuss some draft budget items.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Mr. Robinson.
Yes, I had attached a memo to the information I sent out to you, and it does kind of recap what I have up on the board, and we will go through this again at our public hearing on September 7th. But as of right now, we have, this is just our millage report. It shows that our assessed value is $211,991,570. You take out the homestead, our adjusted assessed value is $201,568,55. That means 1 mil as of right now, and again, we will receive another report from the county, and all the time that I've been here, it typically ticks up a little bit, so that may go up, but 1 mil generates $201,568. So last year, we ended up, once we had that little tick up, it was 188,000 plus per mil. So we are up. You can see that generates, right here on this line, it generates $6,855,948. That's on that millage sheet that was in your packet. Just to kind of show you the big picture, this kind of lays out what our funds are spread out in. We have been putting away at least the amount equivalent to 1 mil in rainy day fund for the past few years. Library receives 1 mil and the fire fund receives 1 mil. So that's over 201,000 for each of those. We still do have a vehicle lease in the fire department that's 109,100. Then moving on down, our debt service, you can see this year it didn't change a whole lot. I think it was 2.6 million last year. It's 2.5 million. We have talked about a big amount that dropped off. That was this 2015 refundable general obligation. Last year, if you go back and look at the millage report, that was over $1 million. This year, that payment is $325,000. So over $725,000 dropped off of that, but the top line up here, the 2019 street rehab bond comes on, so that's $685,000. So it's almost a wash with what we have in our debt service. We still have the 2018 City Hall bond at $413,000. The 2012, which that was the Parks bond, is $720,000, and the 2011 bond, which is a street bond we're still paying on, is $340,000. So kind of just show you where this the general fund is split up. So 2.5 million is in debt service. Going to the memo that I had mentioned, when you look at the funds coming out from that 6.8 million that is generated, we have about 6.2 that we are designating in the budget for ad valorem. And you can see I actually put 6.3 million for ad valorem in the 2020 draft. Just for sake of not going through line by line, some of the major lines that changed was that ad valorem going from 5.5 to 6.3. Sales tax, we had this year 5.6, a little over 5.6 million. We're projecting 6.4. And that's some of the major changes in the revenue coming in. The other line items pretty much run true to what we have done in the past. We are not projecting, 400,000. You've seen that in years past coming from the utility fund, and we actually haven't done that, and we haven't done that transfer in probably 3 years. just due to debates we've had here with former aldermen talking about taking funds from the utility fund for that overhead. So the total revenue projected, you see $20,797,105. I put in there, you all received the department heads' request today, showing what they requested. I sent out an earlier email that once all those requests were put in, at the height of the request, it was close to $1 million loss, so we had to start chipping away with that. We did base increases on what we've talked about in the past. We did a county-wide salary survey of all municipalities in DeSoto County, and we looked at comparable lines and positions in all municipalities, and that comparative sheet that I did for you also put their budget size, each municipality's budget size, how many employees they have, so to give us an idea of the size of the municipality. I also broke it down in each department, how many employees they had compared to our departments. So a lot of the salaries were based on that DeSoto County spreadsheet as far as increases. But I did put in the information that I sent you that those increases ranged from 2% up to a little over 6%. And that hit, I think I put in there, that fell true in about 6 departments, but it's actually 7 departments that range kind of fell true. Majority of the increases fall in the 2%, but there were some that, based on that county-wide comparison, went to a little higher scale. But that's kind of the range that it fell in, 2% up to a little over 6%. And in the draft budget, you saw that right now it does fall at the same amount, so it is a balanced budget. I will point out in a couple things. In the 901 budget, and again, I'm hoping that the county report ticks in a little bit higher and our ad valorem comes in a little bit higher, because if you go to the 901 budget, that is a lot of our, I guess, our overhead for the city, you could call it that. The insurance premium line, we just got word today, Miss AJ's been back and forth because we haven't gotten a true number on the insurance premium. And our liability this year has affected us, and they told us that it could be up to $611,000. You can see I had budgeted, this year we have budgeted $386,000 for our liability. We've spent $386,724. So, and I think our last quarter payment has done. So we're done in that. We came in almost on budget. I had projected $500,000, but now they're telling us today it's going to be over $600,000. The sanitation line item there, the contract expense, I had budgeted an increase there because that contract is based on the CPI, and right now with what we are seeing, what they're basing their numbers on, they base it on the CPI, and they can go up to a certain percentage on increase for our sanitation. And I can tell you it'll probably hit the max increase for our sanitation that we pay. So that's going to go up. So those are two major ones there that adds to that 901 budget. You can see that 901 budget is over $400,000, close to $500,000 increase in that department, or that budget. As I mentioned earlier, Alderman Klein, you'll see the $500,000 for municipal street maintenance project. That will hopefully handle the first phase of what Mr. Vince has in place. And we also have close to $250,000 for City Hall renovation project phase 1. Obviously, we did the roof. I was talking to Alderman Dupree tonight about some issues he's been wanting to address in here, and that first phase will start working once we get a final okay on no more leaks on the roof, working on the interior of City Hall being renovated. Phase 1 will probably be looking at ceiling, lighting, and walls. The floors and seating, I said ceiling, but the floors and seating will be another phase. But we're going to start from the ceiling down before we start tearing up any floors. And this room will see probably one of the biggest changes, because all this carpet will be ripped up, all these chairs will be ripped out, and we'll have a whole new look in here. So
You realize Mr. Francis will have to move if you take up the seating.
yeah, we're going to move the first 2 rows back, so he'll be farther away. But you will see that the 901 has some line items in there that increase that 901 budget close to $500,000. And you can see there at the end of that 901 is the balanced proposal draft right now. And I just open that up to you all. I know we're going to have a public hearing, and we did open it up, the mayor and I think Drew and a few others are going to meet with us, talk to us about their department budget. I know Drew's in the morning still, right? Okay. But we can answer any questions.
Now, I don't know if the board wants to do this. I've heard several comments. If the board wanted to have a meeting between now and September the 7th, more or less a budget workshop, did y'all want to do that? Or?
Yeah.
We probably have to
Can we
recess
just
or call a
recess
special
this
call.
meeting for that?
Correct, Mayor. That was going to be my suggestion. If the board is inclined to have a workshop, perhaps we can choose a date and time tonight and recess this meeting until then.
Is that is there anyone opposed to doing that? I know some of our board members work at night, so we need to work around their schedule if possible. Does anyone have do you want to try to schedule it for a couple of weeks from now?
Mayor, I will be starting the 27th through that whole following week. I will be in Yellowstone in Montana.
So we could do it the Tuesday before the 27th. The 27th being when? What's today? The 17th?
24th is Tuesday. 24th.
So it had to be next week then.
Yes, sir.
The 24th.
Is that all right with everybody?
What day, sir? I'm sorry.
It's Tuesday.
It'll be the 24th.
August 24th.
All right. Well, maybe we can. Mr. Campbell, do you want to say something?
You
sir?
available?
I will be.
Is that okay with you?
Yes, sir.
All right, sir.
I was just going to add, Mayor, Mr. Jim, and possibly you have alluded to it, the noticed public hearing on the budget will be at the September 7th board meeting. and we're required to not adopt the budget until at least a week later. So just for planning purposes, we will be recessing the September 7th meeting to September 14th. It should be a quick recess meeting just to adopt the FY22 budget.
Mr. Robinson.
And I will mention that those requests went out to DeSoto Times-Tribune and the Commercial Appeal, so you will see those printed. DeSoto Times-Tribune will be August 26th and September 2nd. The Commercial Appeal, they have not confirmed a date with me this week and next week, but we're doing it in both papers because of the incident we had with DeSoto Times-Tribune leaving out one of our publications, which caused us to push our meetings even farther back. So you will see those here locally in the DeSoto Times-Tribune on the 26th and the 2nd.
All right. Yeah, that takes care of the business on the open floor. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
Mayor.
Alderman Geis.
I make a motion to go into executive session for A, discussions regarding the prospective purchase, sale, and leasing of lands, and B, the discussion of personnel matters in the Public Works Department.
We have a motion by Alderman Geis. Do we have a second to the motion?
Mayor.
Second by Alderman Young. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Do we have a motion to come out of executive session?
Mayor.
Alderman Young.
I'll make a motion to come out of executive session.
Motion by Alderman Young. Do we have a second?
No, second, Mayor.
Which one of these?
Second by Alderman Dupree. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Robinson.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Is there any other business before this board?
Mayor.
Alderman Geis.
I make a motion to approve the suspension without pay effective August 5th, 2021, and termination of employee number 224 for violation of City Policy 701, 702, and 707, effective August 17th, 2021.
We have a motion by Alderman Geis. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
Second by Alderman Dupree. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Do we have a motion to recess?
Mayor.
Alderman Geis.
I make a motion to recess until Tuesday, August 24th at 6 p.m.
We have a motion by Alderman Geis. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second that, Mayor.
Second by Alderman Bostic. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Ladies and gentlemen, we are recessed until 6 o'clock a week from tonight. Thank you for your attendance.